Hey guys, I'm gonna make another video about my pickup. Woohoo! I just recently did a set of injectors on this thing. It's a 2000 Ford F350. It's got the 7.3 in it. I've seen a lot of videos on guys doing this stuff and sitting there cranking on these things after they get their injectors in, cranking and cranking and cranking and cranking, just freaking cooking the starter. And I don't know, 30 minutes later, maybe it seems like 30 minutes watching the videos, it fires up. Well, I've got a little insight on something here, something I tried to do and it really worked well when you're doing your injectors. So here's the engine, right? Of course, you don't have intercooler piping or intake in the way, but it's kind of hard to see. It's getting dark out. There's your valve cover. So you got 1, 2, 3, 4 right on each side. Go to your second cylinder, pull that injector out, stick a vacuum like a shop vac. I've got a 2.5 gallon shop vac. The end of that is just perfect. It fits right down in the hole where that injector sits. You pull that injector out, stick the vacuum in there immediately. The reason for doing this is it sucks all the fuel and oil out of the rails in the head. Okay, do that on both sides. I do the second one because it's the easiest one to get to, that's closest to the back. It's pretty tough to get that shop vac in underneath the cowling here. It's pretty tough to get that shop vac in there. That tube it's too long. It wants to hit here and you can't get it in there all the way. I could stick that in there far enough. I could damn near get to the bottom of the injector cup, but it's a vacuum, so it's got to have air to create vacuum, right? So you don't want to cram it in there all the way, or you're not making vacuum. You're just spinning your wheels there. So you got to kind of keep it pulled out just a little bit, so your vacuum, you can still hear air sucking through there. But when you pull that injector out, fuel and oil wants to run right down into the cup and run into the cylinder, right? And a lot of people hydrolock their engines because of that, because they don't get all the fuel, all the oil out of the cylinder when they go to restart this thing after reinstalling injectors. So the vacuum helps prevent that. I let that vacuum sit in there and run for 15-20 minutes, something like that. When you go to pull it out, get you some paper towels. I use the blue shop towels that you can get at the parts store and whatnot, but I roll up about 3 or 4 squares of that and fold them over, and then pull that vacuum out and just stuff those down into the injector cup as far as you can get them in there. And whatever's left over in those rails is going to run into that towel and it's going to absorb it. So once you get to that point, after you get that second one out on each side, you can put your vacuum away. After that, you start pulling injectors and just stuffing paper towels in it. Let those paper towels soak that stuff up for a while, I don't know, 20-30 minutes. Come back at the very back of the engine, because if you look at this thing, we could all see that engine's tipped back. They're like that in every pickup. They sit kind of at an angle like this, and your low point is back there under the firewall, or right by the firewall. That's where the most fluid is going to be sitting, in these rails, your fuel and oil. Okay, so when you get to that point, stuff your paper towel in there and let it soak, right? You got all your paper towels in every injector hole, soaking it up. When you go to start cleaning, start up here. You can start, this stupid camera is not focusing. You can start at the front, get your cups cleaned out, brush them out real good. I bought injectors from Full Force Diesel Performance, and they'll sell you the injector brushes and the fluid evacuation tool, and I've got the brushes and that tool from Full Force just in case I did get some fluid down in the cylinders. But I get to that point where I start cleaning on that first injector cup, get it brushed up, get it wiped out real good, make sure there's nothing in there so you get a good seal and all that, you know, that stuff. And you can start reinstalling injectors. But when you get to that back one, by the time you get there, you'll have to pull that paper towel out and stuff another one in there, because there will still be fluid down in there that will get into your cylinder. So that's what I did. That second set of paper towels soaked up virtually everything that was in there. But before you go installing your injectors, use that suction tool just to be sure that nothing got down in the cylinders. I used it and literally nothing came out of the cylinders. So this vacuum technique really works well with the paper towels and all that. Got all the injectors put in, and when I did my injectors, I did my glow plugs as well. So this is the part that is pretty helpful, saves your starter. Leave your glow plugs out. Put your valve covers back on. Put 2 or 3 bolts in it, hand tight. Doesn't need to be real tight, but you stick your valve covers back on with your glow plugs not installed, left out. Get in your pickup, crank it over. I cranked this thing over 5 or 6 times. I think it was 6. It might have been 6. 10 seconds at a time. The reason for this is so you're not fighting compression when you're trying to build oil pressure back in the rail where the oil lives that runs the injectors. That is the whole point behind leaving the glow plugs out and cranking on it. Saves your starter. You don't have to hook a charger up to your batteries, because you're not just burning your batteries up cranking on these things, because you're fighting no compression. So it literally took me probably a minute and a half, and I was pulling valve covers back off, installing glow plugs, putting all the wiring back in the under the valve cover, bolting valve covers down, and literally a minute and a half of cranking is all it took. 5 or 6 times, 10 seconds at a time, and you got all the oil in there that you need. And I put everything back together, and I've got a video clip of it. I think I still have it. If I can, I'll add it to this. But I cranked on this thing for like maybe 4 or 5 seconds, and it fired right up after I got the injectors installed. So one thing, keep the oil and fuel out of your cylinders. Use the vacuum and paper towels. Works really well. Make sure you don't leave any pieces of paper towel down in there, but you'll see that when you're cleaning the injector cups. Second thing, leave your glow plugs out. Put your valve covers back on so you're not blowing anything that would be residual in the cylinders all over the place under your hood and everything else, making a mess underneath it. The valve covers will stop that from happening. But leave the glow plugs out, crank on it 5 or 6 times for 10 seconds at a time to build the oil pressure back up in the rails. Reinstall your glow plugs, put everything back together, get in there, start it, should fire right up. Not a big problem. Really easy to do. That's how I installed the injectors. Worked really well. Didn't burn up my starter, didn't have to charge my batteries, didn't have to do any of that stupid crap. I didn't crank on it for 5 hours straight trying to get oil pressure up there. You know, it just took off. So if that helps you guys, great. I hope it does. If not, I don't know what will. So anyway, you guys have a good one, and maybe we'll see you again.